Okay, I think we're good to go ahead and get started. So welcome to this term or this semester Site Senator Workshop. I'm JoJo. I'm currently the Clinical Student Government Vice President. I'll be kind of running the session, and I'm joined by most of our site senators. So these are our student government representatives at each of Ross's core clinical sites. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of them for taking time out of their very busy clinical schedules to be here. And thank you to all of you guys in semester 5. I know you have crazy schedules as well. So we'll try to keep it quick to the hour and hopefully we can answer all of your questions. Um, this session is just like a general introduction to kind of Ross's available core clinical sites to help you guys out as you start thinking about where you might want to do your rotations as you transition off the island. So I know you guys provided some questions. We also have just some like general information and general questions that people tend to have. So I'll kind of do the general stuff first and then the questions that you guys had previously provided kind of towards the end. Then each one of our senators will chat a little bit about their site, kind of pros, cons, clinical exposure, cost of living, all of that good stuff. And then you guys will have the chance to ask any more questions. As we go along, if you have any pressing questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll kind of be keeping an eye out on it. And then at the end, I'll give you guys a chance to raise your hand and ask them out loud. And yeah, so just in general, we're going to talk about all of the core sites. So right now, the 12 places that we have site senators are places where you can do your core rotations. That's changed in the last little bit of time, but I'm not sure what the list has that Ross sends you because I know sometimes their things can be outdated. This session is not intended to discuss the CBSE or step one. You guys will have several separate sessions to go over this with clinical student affairs and a whole bunch of other people. But this is more towards clinicals and what you guys have to look forward to that's coming up very soon. A general quick information for how to get scheduled for clinicals. So after you pass one and you get your score report, you send that to exam administration at Ross U, and they'll send you back a document that has listed core clinical sites. You'll rank 5 preferences, send it back to them, and then within 10 business days, they're supposed to offer you a clinical track. They, I think, do a pretty decent job at placing you in one of your preferred sites, but they don't necessarily have to, which has happened to some people and can be a little bit frustrating. And they have really been implementing this 90-day rule. So you need to start clinicals within 90 days of passing step 1. When it comes to cores in general, you have 48 weeks of them and then 42 weeks of electives, and then you get kind of a little bit of everything on your course. And then electives, you just have these 2 requirements that you need to meet, but otherwise you can do pretty much anything. You do have to take a shelf exam at the end of every core, 110 NBME questions, and then you have the CCSE, which is basically like the CBSE for step 2, and then step 2, and we also all have to take the OET to apply to residency. But that's not anything to worry about right now. It's just kind of looking ahead at what's coming. And same with this slide. This is just a grade breakdown of what things look like in clinicals. So a lot of it is kind of evaluation driven. That attendings will give you while you're on rotations, and then a quarter of it is your NBME score. And then there's an online curriculum case log part that you have to do as well. Anyone who is not American like myself and has any visa questions, immigration at Ross U will be a very good resource for you. And then we also have a chair of international students, and that's her email right there. So she can also help you out or guide you to the right people, right resources. In general, match timeline wise, this can be affected by how long it takes you to get placed in clinicals and all of that. But in general, small breaks won't really affect your timeline. So like a week or so here, 2 weeks there, but anything big, can shift your timeline a little bit. So generally July is kind of like the sweet spot. If you start before July of the year, like you can match in your appropriate cycle. But if you start after July, you'll match like the following year. So for anyone this year, likely you guys, because you're still on the island, if you start after July of 2026, you'll likely be in the 2029 match. And then these are just, again, some resources, the student handbook. I don't think I put the uploaded or not uploaded, updated one in here. And then we also have the Clinical Student Government keeps a website that has lots of really good information, immigration things, clinicals, electives. So it's a really good resource. That's the second link there. And then we have a big clinical WhatsApp group. I don't know if you can join this one. This might be the full one, but I'll figure out how to get we made a second group so that people could keep joining. I'll figure out how to get that to you guys. And from there, each site has its own little group chat that you can join from the WhatsApp community. So that's also a really good place to kind of ask any other questions if you have them. I'll also give you a list of all of our site senator emails and my email as well. So if you guys are left with any questions or kind of as you go along, you have anything additional that you want to ask any of us, you can do that. Just general questions that people tend to ask. Are we getting more clinical sites? From what we know and what they tell us, they're always working on obtaining new clinical sites, but it takes quite a bit of time for them to discuss, make these contracts. So nothing concrete from what we know yet. And then I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't fully understand how loans work because I'm Canadian. So the way that I have to pay for my tuition is a little bit different from you guys, but we can talk more about that at the end of the session, and some of the site senators can help me fill you guys in on that. So with that, we're going to start talking about our clinical sites, and we're going to start with Center for Haitian Studies.
Hi everyone. My name is Morgan. I am the current site senator for Center of Haitian Studies, which is Miami. I'll try to be quick. So we have cores and electives. We do get, I think the biggest break that I've seen based on some of the other sites, you get 2 weeks at Christmas. You will definitely need a car because everything's kind of everywhere. Studying for a shelf, it really depends on the preceptor you're with, and you're going to hear that from a lot of our site senators. But one of the draws is that there's lots of different sites. So, and our clinical coordinator is great. Once you give her where you're going to be staying, she really works to try to get you as close as you can be to where you're living. So you're not driving all over Miami, but you definitely will have to drive around for some of your rotations.
All right, thank you. Next is Miami Rescue Mission.
Hey everyone, my name's Abu. I'm the site senator for Miami Rescue Mission. So you can do all your cores at the site. I personally didn't because I know a lot of people get split up between Miami Rescue and then they'll have their surgery and internal medicine at Cleveland Clinic, which is in Weston. There are electives. They offer electives and everything. The breaks are pretty much just the Ross ones. And if you need time to study for shelves, really you just have to talk to whoever you're rotating with. And they're pretty good about it. If you tell them they'll give you the day off for your exam. And then if you ask them for the day before too, they usually give you the day before off. I know we're guaranteed like half a day, but they'll give you the day off if you want. I mean, even if you need more, if you just talk to them and let them know your situation, they're all very accommodating. You do need a car because it's very similar. There's a lot of overlap with Center for Haitian Studies. A lot of those sites are the same too. You'll notice some of the students at your MRM sites they'll be there, but they'll be there through CHS and they'll be there through because St. George and AUC also go through Center for Haitian Studies, so you'll see them there as well. But you can be all over. You can be in South Miami, you can be in Broward, you can be, yeah, so you need a car. And cost of living rent varies depending on where you live, but pretty flat amount is 1,800 to 2,500. Uh, it's the nice part is that you, depending on where you're at, you get to see a lot of things, and most of the preceptors compared to other places that I've heard of are very, very nice, and they all want to teach, which is really nice. The drawback is there's no central hospital. So a lot of places, like Chicago or California, they have one central hospital. So, there's always like a student lounge or something to go somewhere to be at. Unfortunately, that's not the case with here. You just go, mostly it's outpatient clinics. So you're going to go to your clinic and then come back home. And then commutes in Miami, very long. So just be aware of that. That's pretty much it.
All right. Our last Florida site is Cleveland Clinic.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joey. I'm the Cleveland Clinic site senator. So Cleveland Clinic doesn't provide you with like all the cores you need to like graduate overall. It only gives you surgery and internal medicine. But for electives, there's a very like big variety, like from cardiology to hemonc to sports medicine. Like really, they have a lot of things. The pros of having just IM and surgery at Cleveland Clinic is that you really rotate through a lot of things, even though you're doing IM and surgery specifically. For internal medicine, you also do ICU, you do some outpatient, so you do rotate through different things. For surgery, you go from vascular surgery, colorectal surgery, general surgery, and also urology, actually, which is kind of niche. Are there breaks? Only the Ross provided ones, and usually our coordinator allows you to take 1 day off every 2 weeks. Sometimes you're allowed more than that. If you just talk to the attending and the residents, you'll be allowed to take a day off. It's okay. Things happens, Do you need a car? It's Florida. Places are far. Usually it's not going to be easy to get to Cleveland Clinic, especially that it's like in the corner. It's in Weston. So you definitely need a car. The cost of living, I put 4,000, including like food, everything. Miami is very expensive. So if you're living in Miami, the rent is about like if you're lucky, 1,700 a month. If you're unlucky, it could be like 2,200 a month. So with food and everything else, it'll get up to 4,000, I would say. I'll usually get enough time to study for shelf. In internal medicine, most of the time you get out early, maybe 1 p.m., 2 p.m., so you get the rest of the day to study. Surgery, on the other hand, is going to be really tough to study, and it's going to be mostly on the weekends because you can have really long days from like 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. So it just depends on your day and the specialty you're in. The clinical exposure is excellent at Cleveland Clinic. They let you, it's very independent. You get to do your own stuff. You get to see the patients alone before rounds. You also get to see the charts. You get to do everything by yourself. You can talk to the residents to get help, etc. They have very high patient volume, and it's very like complex stuff sometimes that happen. So you get to learn very much a lot. There's not one day that I did not learn when I rotated over there. Like even if the more you learn, the more you know stuff, but there's always something you don't know. The drawbacks, I would say, are the high expectations from attendings, residents. They expect you to know some stuff. They expect you to also like help and be like, how to say that, like take initiative. And the long hours, especially for surgery, I would say. So that's really the high expectations that they show. They don't really have much research opportunities, but if you try to talk to people, you can maybe find something. I've heard of many people that have found research opportunities. You can see the chat. There's no requirements to go there now. You just rank it. So I would recommend really Cleveland Clinic if like you're looking for strong clinical training. regardless of like if the hours are tough. If you're interested in surgery, I highly recommend it because you're going to be very, very hands-on. I remember there was a surgery where I was in there and I was treated as if I was an intern. I was doing everything, literally everything. So that's pretty much it. Thank you, guys.
All right, on to our New York friends, starting with St. John's.
Hi, I'm trying. I don't know if my camera's working. Is it working? Okay, there it goes. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is St. John's Episcopal Hospital. It is a very small hospital. You can do all your cores here, and there are electives you can do here. So this is kind of like a one-stop shop for everything, which I think is great. If you are trying to do surgery, which I think a lot of people are very specific about where they want to go if they want to do surgery. This is not a level 1 trauma center, so you probably won't get exposure to as many surgeries as you want to in your core rotations or your sub-Is if you want to do a sub-I here. But yes, it is, you do still get a pretty decent general surgery exposure. It is very expensive. It is New York City. So you're not in like the heart of like Manhattan or something. You're actually like further out in Far Rockaway. So it's not like the city. It's like you get the city without the city. I don't know how to explain it. But it's still very expensive here. Typically people just rent a room. So not an apartment, just one room. And one room is going to cost you about $1,500 to $1,800, and that's for the room. That's not including living expenses. That's not including food or any kind of toiletries that you might need, so on and so forth. Most rooms will come with like the utilities included. But yeah. And if you want a 1-bedroom apartment, you're looking at a studio or a 1-bedroom, you're looking at about 2,500 to 4,000, closer to the 4,000 range, to be honest. If you find one for 2,500, great. Can't get it, but if you don't, you're looking at closer to the 4,000 range, and that typically does not include utilities. So New York is very expensive to live here. If you do know somebody who's coming to the site with you, you can always think about rooming, which I think is great. There's a lot of public transportation. You do not need a car, so public transportation everywhere. It's nice. Most people like to do the PEDS rotation and IM rotations. Those are I think the two most popular rotations at this site. PEDS is usually outpatient, so you're going to be in the clinic the whole time. You get to do a lot by yourself, see a lot of the patients by yourself, which I think is great. And St. John's is actually very beautiful. When you get to like the 7th floor and up, you get to see a great view of the beach. So it's always nice, especially when you want to take a break or a lunch break or something like that. But speaking of lunch breaks, when you're on rotations here, especially your core rotations, some rotations do not just give you days off. You have to, like, if you take a day off, you have to make it up. One of those rotations in particular is psych. So psych is very strict about making days up. Some rotations, if you're sick, they'll just give you the day off. I think you get, if it's a 12-week rotation, I think you're allowed 6 days off in 12 weeks for sick leave, but you might have to provide a doctor's note. And if it's a 6-week rotation, 3 days, so half. So yeah, just be prepared to provide a doctor's note if you are sick or something like that, and please let people know. Don't let people know, 2 days after you didn't show up. Like, as soon as you know you're sick and not going to be able to make it, let your chief student know or something like that. One of the drawbacks is parking is difficult. So if you do have a car, parking is difficult anywhere in New York City. And if you want to park at the hospital, it's going to cost you about $70 for a parking fee every month. So I recommend just walk, find somewhere close, walk, or take public transportation. Another thing too is I would recommend bringing your own food, bringing your own snacks, because the cafeteria opens around, I think, 7 a.m. and it closes at about 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, and it's not open on the weekends. So You also have a cafe that's open every day from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. But if you have to work a weekend shift, a night shift, or something like that, you might miss a couple of these things. And so bringing your own food is definitely recommended. Just to know those times. But New York is great. New York is fun. Like not every day you're gonna get a chance to spend this much time in New York City and see all the things and go to all the places and all the different boroughs and try all the different foods. I mean, it's great to like take breaks, periodic breaks, and relax, but it's expensive. But you will get all your exposure. Preceptors are great. Any questions?
If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And then we're going to go to Bronx Care. Also, I can attest to the pretty views. I did an OB rotation, and from the 9th floor at sunset, it was pretty nice, I have to say. Okay, Bronx Care.
Hi, sorry, I'm trying to make sure you guys can see and hear me. My name is Janae, and I'm a born and raised New Yorker, and I am the site senator for Bronx Care. So can you do all your cores at this site? Absolutely, you can do everything at this site. I am currently in my last core rotation of, thank God, and it's psych. Are there electives? Bronx Care offers an elective in almost every single thing you want to do. If you are interested in cardiology, there's a cardiology elective, there's OB electives, ophthalmology, radiology, like everything is there for you. Are there any breaks? Only the Ross provided holidays. You get a little bit more flexibility and breaks when the holidays come around, like Thanksgiving and Christmas. People are more lenient to give you a day off. And psych takes extra breaks for some reason. I had a friend that did the psych rotation right before I did, and they had the first full week off. Don't know why, but psych ends up doing those type of stuff. You gotta love it. Do you need a car? Of course not. It's New York City. Cost of living does vary. Is there time to study for shelves? Yes, especially on your long rotations like IM and surgery. Surgery is going to be a difficult time to study, but I was able to study for comp and pass comp during my surgery, so I don't think it was that bad. But some people can't really handle a 6 a.m. schedule to about another 6 p.m. So that can be a little difficult. But IM is very straightforward. You usually come in around 7 and you leave at 12. And then every other rotation has their own rules and their own little things that they like to follow. Right now I'm on child psych and I come in about 8 a.m. and I get to leave at 3. Well, officially I'm supposed to leave at 3. Sometimes they allow you to go earlier. This, again, all depends on your residents or your fellows. Draws. Yes, you do get to see a lot of cases that are usually show up in textbooks. In surgery, I saw a case of Ludwig's angina. Sorry, my AirPods are I apologize for that. But I got to see a case of Ludwig's angina. Please let me know if you can't hear me at all. And that's not something you get to really see in real life. We had a case in OB of Krockenberg's. The patient was diagnosed just because she came in after a car accident and they were just doing scans and they realized, oh, there's a mass here. And they diagnosed her with Krockenberg's. So it's all something you can't really get at other sites. We're not a level 1 trauma center or anything special like that, but we're very involved in the community. Plus, if you speak Spanish, like you get automatic points with your residents, your attendings, because most of them here, we do speak Spanish with our patients. So if you can connect with your patients on a deeper level, it's easier to get a letter of rec or like a nice little check mark on your evaluations from your residents. Yeah, the drawbacks. The neighborhood can definitely be a cultural shock to people who have never been to New York before. So again, born and raised New Yorkers, I don't really think the neighborhood is especially dangerous. But there can be a lot of homeless people around the streets. It's very common. You may see, and I don't want to scare anybody from New York, but you may see people that are on drugs, doing drugs at the train station and in front of the hospital. It's not surprising with the patient population. We deal with a lot of very sick people that have poor access to healthcare. So these things are sadly kind of prevalent.
I don't want that to be like something that scares you, because eventually, if you do an emergency rotation or you go to the emergency room with your internal medicine doctors, you are going to deal with a patient population that you've never seen before and that are having difficulties that you've never experienced. But if you go in with an open mind, I think it'll be pretty fine. Personally, for me, the biggest drawback is the hospital is on a pretty steep hill. So if you're coming off the 4 train and you're going up that hill, please don't run up the hill. You will fall. I have fallen a couple of times and it's just not fun. And I think the most interesting thing about our hospital is the fact that when you're on your surgery rotations or you get up to the 17th floor, you can see a beautiful skyline of New York City. So it's just like really picturesque. Take a nice break and you're just like, oh, the city is so beautiful before you go deal with whatever you have to deal with. So if you choose to come at Bronx Care, I will be there. I host site senator meetings every month as we're required to. So you'll see me around. I have done literally every core rotation here. I know too many doctors at this point. So if you need any help, we're here to help you. Thank you.
Awesome. Also, did you say the 17th floor? Dang.
Yeah, since New York is not very horizontal. If anybody's seen Cleveland Clinic, you know, because I did a rotation there, it's very horizontal. But New York, we don't have a lot of space like that, so we go vertical. Technically, the building has about 20 floors, and the elevators are kind of slow. And sometimes you do get residents that want you to walk up the stairs with them. So I will say good luck with that, especially for surgery. They're on the 17th floor. Yeah.
Stair stepper practice before joining Bronx Care.
Get your steps in, guys. Get your steps
in. All right. Our last New York site is Jamaica Hospital.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I am outside, so if I cut off at any point, please let me know, Jojo, because there's a whole family in my apartment, so I had to step outside to do this. But yeah, I'm also born and raised in New York, a native for Queens, and then I've been the site senator for Jamaica Hospital for my 2nd term. First of all core sites are located at the hospital. The only one that you have to go outside of the hospital for is family medicine, which is only 4 weeks out of your 6 for your outpatient clinics. Are there electives? 100%. There is so many electives. I am finishing up my course, so I am looking into electives at Jamaica Hospital, and the list is very, very big. So we do have a lot of electives. Are there breaks? Unfortunately, there are no breaks besides the ones that Ross and the hospital kind of recognize. So those are just federal holidays, like the July 4th holiday, like Thanksgiving holiday and New Year's Eve. But other than that, there are no breaks. Do you need a car? I don't think you need a car. Everything is based off of public transport, and you can always walk. For the majority of students, we live within the mile of Jamaica Hospital. There is a bunch of high rises and there's a bunch of apartment buildings. Some people share an apartment, and then some people decide to have their own apartment. It's all going to depend on your level of comfort and what you want to spend. So for me, I have my own apartment, a 1-bedroom, and it costs about $2,600 a month. If you split that with someone, it could potentially be $1,300 for the 2 of you. And if you look at more of a private building, it'll be a little bit cheaper, but nothing less than $2,400 and nothing more than $3,200. And that's not including all the costs for food and for public transport and anything else you do, when you're living in New York. So it can get a little pricey, which is one of the drawbacks. Going to time to study for shelves, I believe all core rotations at Jamaica Hospital give you ample time to study for shelves. I am in my last one right now, and halfway done with my IM rotation. And for all my rotations, I've had an ample amount of time. There is no, like stress environments or anything like that. Like the residents will give you time. They understand. And there are a lot of actual Ross alumni that are now residents. So they understand that we need to study for our shelf exams. And everyone is very, supporting in that aspect, even though we do not have any breaks. So clinical exposure, I think the pros are it's a great teaching hospital, and there are a lot of unique cases. We have a very diverse population. We have everyone from around the world We are very close to JFK, so we have, international cases coming in, very interesting cases. I have seen everything that I have seen in the Step 1 book being presented to me in the hospital. So yeah, also very high volume. Like if you do an elective for emergency medicine, you're going to be working your butt off because it is a very, very busy emergency department. We are also a level 1 trauma center, so we get all the traumas in your surgery rotation. You do 6 weeks of trauma, you're on 24-hour calls, and it is one of the best experiences. I personally do not want to do surgery, but that was so cool, and it was one of the best experiences I've had in my life. You also get to work with other students from other schools. So there's a school called NYIT, that is a DO school. There's also Mercy, which is a PA school. And then there's also a lot of nursing students. So the staff and the attendings and the residents know that what they're signing up for is being around a bunch of students, whether it's medical students, PA students, DO students, nursing students. So it's a very student-friendly hospital. Now for drawbacks, I would say the biggest drawback is just the cost of living. Living in New York can cost an arm and a leg, literally. Paying for parking if you're driving. So for the most of us, like at Jamaica, we just walk or take public transport. But I know like a few people that do park in the hospital, and it is $8 a day for students, and that is already with the discount. So it can get a little hefty if you are driving to the hospital. Another downside would be there is no scheduled breaks. So for most rotations, they are not super strict, but besides psychiatry, they are a little strict. For the other ones, if you talk to the attending or if you talk to your residents and you do need some, time off, they usually give it off. In surgery, I personally took, I think, more than 6 days, which are allotted for you. So as I think Joanna was saying that you have 6 days for 12-week rotations and 3 days for 6-week rotations. I was traveling in my surgery rotation and I simply just spoke with the attending and he was nice enough to just give me the time off. So everyone is very, welcoming, understanding, and I personally just love the hospital. I'm always advocating for Jamaica Hospital. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'll drop my phone number in the chat and you can always connect with me.
All righty, thank you guys. Now moving to the complete opposite side of the country. Our California hospital site senator had a clinical requirement, so she's unable to make it. So I will go through her slides super quick, but this hospital is our only one out in the California area so far, or right now. I do think that they're working on trying to get more, but again, I don't know how that's going, if it's going, or when anything will come out of it. In our hospital out in California, you can do all of your cores and they have electives. They only have the Ross provided holidays and you do need a car. The cost of living is quite broad, I think, as you can assume for California. You do have enough time to study for your shelves. Some of the draws is that 4 of your core rotations are done at the site, the hospital itself, and then the other 2 are about 15 to 20-minute drive away. But the preceptors are very understanding. They give you lots of time to study and be successful in your rotations. I have generally heard quite a few pros of people who are out in California. They all seem to really enjoy doing their cores out there. For drawbacks, just the no dedicated time off like some of the other sites, no real breaks. But overall, she says it's a really great site and she would recommend to anybody interested. Our next site is Danbury or Norwalk, kind of our Western Connecticut sites. We currently don't have a senator for here. So if you do have any questions about the site specifically, you can send them to my email at the end of the session, and then I'll get in contact with some of our previous senators. But here you can do all of your cores. They have electives. They have a week break in the fall and 2 weeks at Christmas. A car is required, and around like just over $2,000 is average rent per month. They don't have dedicated study time for their shelves, but the site is good for learning. It's really organized, and I guess the students are well taken care of. They have supportive residents, which is always always important. And some drawbacks is not as much free time like some of our other sites. But again, if you have any questions about this, I can get you guys in touch with somebody who knows the answers. Next is UMCAP.
Hey guys, so my name's Kamani Gardner. I'm the site senator for Capital Region. So yes, all of the cores are offered at our site, and we do electives. Our breaks are only Ross provided holidays, and also, which I didn't know, some of the hospitals in Maryland. So for UMCAP, the holidays, we are also granted the business day before the actual holiday. So for example, July 4th landed on Saturday. We were also given Friday off. So same thing, if it was on Sunday, we would be given Monday off. No, you don't necessarily need a car because we do have the metro here. There's literally a metro stop right outside of the hospital. So no, not really, but there are a couple of the core electives that are in Baltimore, which will make it difficult because Metro only goes but so far in Maryland. The cost of living is around $3,000 a month. That's including like your apartment and all the extra like cost of living, like food and X, Y, and Z. Apartments, usually one bedroom right around the hospital. It goes anywhere from 15 to 1700 a month. That's not including like utilities, Wi-Fi, X, Y, and Z. Those are all added fees. Yes, there is time to study for shelves, and I feel like the preceptors are pretty understanding of like needing time to study. You just kind of have to communicate with them. Draws to the site is that they've all honestly been very helpful. Like in our break room for the students, if you have a general question, you can ask students and, we'll all band together, kind of help with the situation. It's a great community, I've felt since I've been there. Drawbacks is kind of getting in contact with the GME office. Everybody's busy, especially since we just started. The residents are, GME is over a lot of all the students. So not only just the raw students that are coming in for clinicals, but also the residents X, Y, and Z. So it's a backlog there, but it's not because they don't care about us. It's genuinely because they're very busy. But one thing I will say is, this goes for whatever site you do decide to choose, is don't doubt yourself coming in. I really do think, as interesting as Ross approaches are, they really did set us up for success, and all the doctors at UMCAP are very understanding and willing to teach us. So it's a great experience. I've loved it so far. If you have any more questions, just let me know.
Thank you. I realized I never told any of you guys where I was doing my rotations. I promise I'm not some random person. I'm a clinical student too. I did my cores at our next site, which is Trinity and in Michigan, and I'm doing most of my electives here too. So Trevina, take it away.
Thank you. So just like JoJo, I'm also Canadian, but I chose Michigan, and I've been at Trinity for all my cores and most of my electives. So yes, you can do all your cores here and you can do all your electives, but I chose to do one back home in Canada and a couple in our like other local hospital called Henry Ford Providence, which a lot of our students do rotations at as well. There are breaks provided. You get 2 weeks around the Christmas holidays, and you also get 2 weeks in like end of June, July situation. I think that our students are just about to be done that like this week or next week. And also you obviously get your Ross holidays as well. You can also schedule like time off with our coordinator. It's like half the amount of weeks per rotation. So if you have like a 6-week rotation, you can take about 3 days off. And if you have a 12-week rotation, you could take 6 days off. In terms of a car, our public transport in Michigan, I don't think is great. I would recommend a car. A a lot of students live like within walking distance of the hospital and they've gotten around without a car, but also keep in mind Michigan has winter. So if you're not used to that, it can be very jarring at first. And unfortunately, for our outpatient experiences, like in family and peds, they're not super close to the hospital. I would say they're usually within like 15, 20 minutes away. So transport to go to the outpatient might be tough. For cost of living, it's not terrible. I would say for rent, I've seen anywhere from 1,200 to like 17, 1,800 per month for a one bedroom. You do have plenty of time to study for shelves. I would say like other sites, surgery can be pretty busy. Some weeks more busy than others in surgery. And also surprisingly for me, family was pretty like go, go, go. But I learned so much while in my rotation that I didn't feel like I was missing too much time studying. And usually attendings are pretty accommodating if you do need to take a day off or like just need to study, while there's downtime. So for pros, I would say one of the great things about Trinity is there are a lot of Ross students. Like I think we mainly have Ross students and then one of like the Michigan schools, Wayne. But I would say like 90% of the students at Trinity are Ross. And we have a great community. You have a really good student lounge that we all kind of hang out in. Like whenever there's downtime, you can leave your stuff. It's totally safe. Everyone usually helps each other out, like we're all kind of going through the same thing. So no gatekeeping here. And a great thing, you could do all your electives, you can do your cores here. And I think the area is really nice. There's a lot to do around here. Some cons, however, is we don't have a ton of residents in like every specialty. Like you only work with residents in surgery, IM, OB-GYN, and like radiology. So if you're interested in family and you want to get exposure to a family residency, Trinity doesn't have that, but our other hospital we go to, like if you choose to do electives in Henry Ford, that does have a family program. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can get by without a car, but it can be tough, as I mentioned. But I will say if you're interested in coming to Trinity, please do it. It's an awesome site, and I think most students have had a really, really positive experience here. And Michigan as a state has a lot to offer. It's very IMG friendly and very like non-US student IMG friendly as well. But yeah, that's all I have. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.
Believe it or not, Gopal, some people here are without a car and they'll just Uber to whenever they're like outside of the hospital.
Okay,
Which,
that makes sense.
yeah, which
It's
is
Uber.
very ballsy, but it's possible. I think it's challenging but possible. Our last two sites are out in Chicago, so we're gonna do St. Anthony and then Mount Sinai.
Hey everyone, my name is Saw. I'm the site senator at St. Anthony Hospital, which is in Chicago, Illinois. So starting off, all cores are offered at this site. I'm currently on my 4th core rotation, my last week of inpatient psychiatry. It's been very interesting. All electives are also offered as well, various electives, but I will also mention that they're not ACGME accredited, so keep that in mind. Are there breaks? That's actually incorrect. Yes, there are, but it's just the standard Ross holidays. And this site will give you maybe like 1 or 2 days like before or after said holiday as well. So for example, for Thanksgiving, you'll also have November 26th in addition to the 27th. And then for like Christmas, you'll have December 24th as well as December 25th. Do you need a car? No, you don't need a car here, which is awesome. But I will say that living closer to the hospital, living closer to St. Anthony Hospital is more ideal. The farther that you live away, it could be a little bit more challenging to get to the hospital in a timely fashion. But if you live within a reasonable distance, like a nearby neighborhood, public transit is super easy and convenient. And it's more affordable than parking here if you have a car. And I know from experience, because I actually came here with a car, parking can be quite expensive. So let's say you park in a nearby parking garage near your residence, or just like the parking facility that's associated with your place that you're staying. It could be anywhere from like $275 to $400 per month. So that can get pretty pricey. But the good thing is that parking at St. Anthony Hospital is free. Yes. But then if you decide to use public transit, which the CTA is like the Chicago Transportation Authority, that's like the public transit system here, and it's really, really active 24/7, and that would cost about $75 a month to utilize. So you could do that instead of bringing your car if you choose. With regards to cost of living, I put $2,600, but that's based off of housing rent. If you are a single individual who chooses to live in like a studio apartment or a 1-bedroom, it is cheaper further away from the hospital. So I live pretty close. I'm like, honestly, maybe 10 minutes or less away from the hospital. And so my rent is $2,600 per month, and I live in a studio. But it's cheaper if you have a roommate. So it could be maybe like $1,400, $1,500, or you can look on places like Furnished Finders and find an accommodation that's more suited for your budget. Let's see, time to study for shelves. There's plenty of that. I'd say St. Anthony Hospital, from my experience, is a very chill clinical site. The preceptors are pretty laid back, and there's plenty of time to study. So for example, let's say that the clinical day begins at like maybe 8 a.m. You could be out by noon, and then you have the rest of your day to study. And then there's certain days during the week where you may not necessarily have to go in, just depending on like the attending doctor that you're working with, like their schedule. And also I'd say they're pretty like understanding if you have other things that you need to do, like just communicate it, and you can take off. Someone mentioned earlier that for psychiatry, usually those are the days that you have to make up if you take off, but maybe for some of the other rotations, they're more lax. I'd say the same here. That's been my experience. Clinical exposure. So draws, not needing a car, that's pretty convenient. So I'm actually originally from North Carolina, and I'm used to always having my car. So this is like the first time living somewhere where I don't have like actively need a car. And so it's been kind of nice, especially those days where I'm so tired and like I don't want to get behind a wheel. I can just hop on the train and just, get home. Another draw, enough time to study for clerkship exams. And also the peds department is really awesome. I'm not interested in peds, but I will say that I enjoyed that rotation a lot, and that was because of the attendings that were amazing, and the residents really enjoyed teaching students. Saw a lot of cool cases that were textbook. Some drawbacks, I'd say the high cost of living, comparable to New York. It can get pretty pricey here. Not like actually, there are some places for $4K, a month, but again, I was able to find somewhere less than that that's decent. Urban crime, there's a lot of that. I mean, it's a big city. Things happen, it maybe depends on the neighborhood that you live in, but you'll see news reports about things happening in certain neighborhoods and certain crimes happening very close to the hospital. So it just kind of comes with the territory. So just kind of be mindful of that. I think if you do have a good sense of awareness and common sense, you should be fine. But I do think it's important just to mention that. And the intense winters. So similar to Michigan, the winters are brutal. So I got here in January, and winter was wintering for sure. But now it's summertime and it's beautiful, and I'm really enjoying the weather. But it's important to just know that the winters can be a bit of an adjustment here.
All right, last but certainly not least, Mount Sinai.
All right. Hi, guys. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I was on call today, so I'm still at the hospital. The Wi-Fi is a little iffy. But so yeah, I'm at Mount Sinai, Chicago. My name's Gopal. I'm finishing up my third year. I'm in my last core rotation of IM. I have about 2 months left. So yeah, you can do all of your cores here at Mount Sinai, as well as many electives. Starting last year, they have started giving you a 3-week Christmas break every year. So on top of the Ross holidays you get. So you do get guaranteed a 3 weeks off in December. Like we were saying, you don't really need a car here in Chicago. I also brought a car my first month, did not use it much. I took it home and I've been using public transportation since. I know individuals, females and males, who live even far from the hospital, and even at 5 a.m. in the morning, they are using, and late night, they're using the public transportation to get to the hospital and back and go all over the city. As long as you're smart, you won't have any issue using public transportation. Cost of living, like you were saying, depending on where you live and what kind of experience you want, it can be a total, including groceries and things like that, anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 a month. The base rent, like you were saying, was probably somewhere between $2,200 to $2,600 is the average most students spend. If the more into downtown you want to be, the more expensive the rent will be. And then how often you want to go out, how often you want to eat out. Chicago, unfortunately, is very expensive. And it being a major metropolitan city, the taxes are higher than they are even in the suburbs here in Illinois. So you got to take kind of that into account. You do get time for shelves. So at Sinai, you get you're guaranteed half a day, the day prior your shelf off, guaranteed. But a lot of the rotations, your hours are well enough where you can study even during the rotations, no problem. For instance, like today, I'm on call. I work 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our shift wasn't very busy. We admitted 2 patients and had 1 rapid call. So most of the day I was able to sit in the library and study today. It kind of ebbs and flows depending on what you need to do clinically. Each rotation will have different hours, but you're, averaging getting out somewhere between 1 to 4 p.m. On a normal day. So you have plenty of time for the rest of the day to study. And even while you're in the hospital, as long as you're not doing anything, clinical duties, sometimes, you're waiting to help and waiting for cases to go. If you're in surgery or something, you can absolutely use that time to study, here in the hospital. So some draws to come here at Sinai. You get to be very hands-on, learn a lot. You kind of are unfortunately thrown into it a little bit, but you get to learn a ton. When I was on surgery, I did trauma. From day one, we were suturing, lax on faces, stapling. I sutured somebody's neck wound. The residents, if you are willing to try and put in good effort, the residents let you do kind of as much as you want, under proper supervision. Most of the attendings and residents are very interested in teaching. They love to speak with students and help them out. Like I said, no car needed is one of the best things here. It's a great food scene, great social scene. Chicago, you can kind of find whatever you really want to, whatever your interests are. And from being active in sports and stuff to wanting to go see plays and becoming more artery, really whatever you want to do, you can kind of find here. And we do not do any 24-hour shifts. In IM, you do at least 1 week of nights, and then in surgery, you do 1 week of nights when you're on trauma. That's kind of it. Other than that, there's no night shifts here either. Some drawbacks are unfortunately just due to it being a residency program and how busy the hospital is. Sometimes students do get used to are given some busy work, some quote unquote grunt work, whether it's calling appointments, following up on labs, things like that. But at the same time, it does help you kind of understand the resident workflow. And then the actual hospital, it's a safety net hospital. So it is for a lot of low income or no income or undocumented individuals, uninsured individuals. So unfortunately, it's not the most hi-fi techie hospital. But we do provide a lot of cares. You'll see a lot of different types of population here. If you speak Spanish, you'll be even better off. But if not, then they have translators available very readily that you can utilize. And cost of living can be a bit high. I would very, very strongly recommend coming to Chicago, especially if you want a site where you will be very hands-on. Honestly, most of the rotations, you're kind of treated like an intern. And so you get to learn what the medicine is like from day one, very early on. And you'll be very well prepared, and you'll get to see a lot, do a lot, and be very hands-on here. And it's a level 1 trauma. So especially in the summer months, like right now, it gets very crazy. I think 4th of July, they had like 25 traumas all in one night in a 12-hour shift. Yeah, it gets very busy.
That's crazy.
Mhm.
All right. Those were all of our clinical sites. You guys feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat, and then I'm gonna go through and look through the questions that you had all previously sent to me. So we are working on a list of start dates at each of our sites just to get an idea of when things are available. Again, I think each site should usually takes people every 6 weeks, except for Connecticut. I think they only have one start date in May, but we don't know how many people they take each time or what's available or what. So this can be pretty variable. I know, especially at Trinity, like sometimes we'll have 3 people start, sometimes we'll have 13 people start. So I think it really just depends on like outgoing students for how many they can take in. For electives, don't worry about that too much right now. That's a whole mess in and of itself sometimes that you'll get to experience in your third year. Electives is all through like the now Med Community portal. Not necessarily. Some of them you schedule through the site, but that's a whole different rabbit hole that we could talk about forever. I don't actually know what's currently listed on Ross's website in terms of core rotations, but everyone who's here, that's a core rotation for sure, and those are the only ones that exist. Again, for electives, if your site doesn't have enough electives, you'll figure it out once you get to your end of your third year and fourth year. You can join each site's group chat in the WhatsApp community that I'll find a way to send to you guys. And then for how long it usually takes to get placed, I think before was pretty variable, but now you have to start within 90 days of passing step. So that could very well be at your absolute last possible pick, the place that you absolutely did not want to go to, but that's where they'll send you, unfortunately. But I do find that they've been pretty good, at least for myself and a lot of the people that I know, at trying to get you in your first top 3, I would say. And yeah. Let me look at the
Yeah, I
chat.
will say while they are very good about that, there at least in here in Chicago, there were a few individuals who Chicago wasn't anywhere in their rank list. They had like all 5 in Florida, and they just happened to take it at a weird time where there were no openings in Florida, and the only times available within those 90 days was here in Chicago. So they came and did their course here in Chicago. And then, you know, if you're really kind of set on doing a specific site, you always have the option, and you don't get it, you always have the option to go there and do all of your electives there as long as they're available in that area.
I will also add to, in terms of like getting my number one choice, I was kind of in a weird situation before I even submitted my passing step 1. They randomly sent me that I was like confirmed to go to Miami. And I was like freaking out because I didn't even send anything yet, and Miami like was not on my radar. So I like got in contact with them, and they were like, "Oh, like um this was kind of a mistake, but kind of not. Like, if you want to wait to go to Trinity, you can, as long as it is within the 90 days." And then thankfully it ended up working. So you can try to talk to them and see if they can put you in your number 1. It just might be like a couple weeks later than the site you were initially put into.
Okay, just going through some of the questions, I'm gonna go back to this slide, and then I'll also touch on the ACGME super quick. So that really matters when it comes to electives, I want to say. It doesn't really matter to you necessarily beforehand, but there is the requirement of 10 weeks of electives being ACGME accredited. So I'm pretty sure what that means is that there's just a residency program attached to that rotation in that hospital. Or Trina, I don't know if like exactly what it means.
So that's what I thought too. But for us, family is an ACGME elective, but we don't have family, so I don't know what that really
Yeah, so even if you don't like have a residency program, sometimes depending on like what schools they're partnered with, hospitals
Okay.
can get away with having programs accredited on ACG ME with somebody else. Like for instance, here at Sinai, we don't have a home EM residency program, but our EM elective is ACG ME accredited through the three hospitals that send their residents here on a visiting rotation. And since they work the EM, our elective is ACGME accredited under them, so under Rush, Advocate, and Insight.
Okay. So yeah, that really only matters for you to meet that requirement for your electives. Outside of that, doesn't really matter. Sorry, I feel like my vision's really bad. I'm like leaning into my computer to read these. Um, Oh, I did get my first pick for and then yeah, it super depends on availability at that time. But yeah, wait, let me actually stop sharing my screen and then I'll just drop in the chat a list. Hold on. A list of all of our emails so that you guys can get a hold of us if you have any questions, comments, concerns. And it is 8:01, so you're all free to go. I know the site senators are super busy. They got a lot going on. I just want to say thank you again for being here with us and helping me out with this. And oh, someone has their hand up. But if you guys have to go, feel free to go. I'm just gonna copy and paste everybody's emails. And then Andrew, go for it.
Hi, yeah, I apologize if you guys said anything about this earlier. I had to step away for a second, but how common or how much of a hassle is it to do some, or is it even possible to do some cores in one place and some in a different place, depending on what you're interested in, or how do you guys navigate that?
Yeah, unfortunately, because I also asked about that when I first started, they do not let you transfer in the middle of your course. Whatever site or track you are assigned, you have to do all of your cores at that location that you receive. And then with your electives is where you get to go visit different hospital systems.
Okay. So maybe I heard this wrong, but I thought, for example, Cleveland Clinic, there was only 2 cores for IM and surgery. So how does that work then?
Yeah, so like sites like that, Cleveland, it's essentially it is built into that track or that location that you get. So if you're assigned Cleveland Clinic, they're set up to have the 2 at the main Cleveland Clinic. And then for the rest of them, you'll go to neighboring hospitals or neighboring clinics based on what preceptor you get assigned to. But
Okay.
it's built into the Cleveland Clinic. So you don't
So
get to choose.
basically it's built per location. So if you chose South Florida, you're gonna be in South Florida, and depending on your ranking, if you got Cleveland Clinic, you're gonna do IM and surgery there, and then ideally you're gonna either do MRM or CHS. It doesn't matter. Like they'll match you depending on the ranking and what's available, of course.
Okay, and sorry, what's MRM and CHS?
So MRM is Miami Rescue, and CHS is Center of
Oh,
High
okay.
End. Yeah.
That makes sense now. Okay, so they'll push you out to any of the other 2
Right,
for the
exactly.
rest.
So
Okay.
you can stay in the same area, and when you do the cores with CHS, and MRM, they kind of ask you where you live, so they give you something close by too. So like you don't have to go too far either way.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other last minute questions?
I just dropped my chat, but I can ask because I know some med schools do this. Is there like an orientation to clinicals, like a hey, before we just drop you in to do all this stuff, like this is what you'll expect, or they just kind of like drop you in?
I feel like from what I remember in true Ross fashion, they are really just like, here you go. I think
Yeah.
they had like it. The only thing that I remember was like a step one like transition to clinicals thing that wasn't really helpful, and then I had like a hospital orientation that also wasn't helpful.
I
Yeah.
can touch a little bit about that too. Sorry, let me turn my video so you guys can see who's speaking to. Maybe this is a different experience because I did transfer into Ross from a different school, but there is an orientation. So if your start date is like a little wonky and they can't put you in something right away, they'll put you in like a 4-week program that counts as an elective at Cleveland Clinic. So at least you're still doing something. So you're not just kind of sitting around doing nothing. And there was an orientation on just like how to approach clinicals, what to do. To me, I didn't find it that helpful from Ross, but it was still something that they did for us. So I don't know if they're going to continue doing this. I started my clinical journey back in August of last year. So hopefully they do.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I had 2 different orientations. So I had the orientation session with Ross where they had like different clinical peer mentors. And I forgot who else was on there, but they did do that orientation and allowed us to ask questions. I felt like that was pretty helpful because they opened the floor and gave us ample time to ask all of our questions, and they were really great at that. And then for UMCAP, we have a separate orientation with our senior site program director, and he'll talk about the site itself and kind of lay it out for us. And I found that pretty helpful too.
Yeah, every site you'll definitely get at least the site-specific orientation because they need to make sure you're up to date on all your hospital policies, school policies, what you require for your clinicals. And I think it might actually be new because this time around, Javier, like us members from CSGA also joined that orientation. Javier, who's kind of our like faculty boss of student affairs, similar to how Jesselyn is on the island, he does host a orientation with the clinical peer mentors that you could get paired with, and then sometimes us clinical SGA members to kind of give students an idea of what to expect for clinicals and how the overall process is. It's nothing too in-depth, it's nothing too overall. It's kind of similar to this where we kind of all talk about our experiences and just give like general advice. Some students may find it helpful, some may not, but that is still happening.
Just like the other sites, Trinity does have like a virtual hospital orientation by like the coordinator. For us, it's Kristen, and I think Susan as well is part of that. But one thing we do have, which is really awesome that JoJo helps out in a lot, is like a student-run in-person orientation. Like,
Huh.
I
forgot about that.
Yep. Like the night before your first day, and like we kind of walk through the hospital, where to get scrubs, like where the student lounge is, any questions. Like it's a very safe space. It's just students, so you can literally ask anything, be as honest as you want. And also, I believe the night before surgery and the night before or the day of OB, we also have student run orientations that are very, very helpful and like a good rundown of what to expect.
Yeah, as student organizations, I think we've done pretty well. I'm in one of the leadership for surgery club, so like that surgery orientation that Trevino was talking about. They kind of do a student-led orientation at a lot of our sites to kind of give you guys an idea of what to expect as you go into it. So a lot of the orientations are kind of student-based from like club organization and things like that. So we all try to help out incoming students as much as we can.
Awesome.
Can I ask a quick question to anybody who's in surgery or done surgery?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So this is probably a stupid question, and again, I apologize. I was actually jumping on and off, or not, I was kind of listening to the surgery clinical rotation GBM just to try to get information out of that at the same time as this. So I apologize for that. But I can't remember if it was this call or that call, and people were saying that they were kind of expected day one to know what they're doing and jump in and do things. And is there I guess, like, do you have to be certified to do like sutures or like, you know, little tiny procedures like that, or is it something that you just learn from the clubs on the island and then you just do under supervision once you get there? Or what's the best way to be prepared for all that?
Yeah, there's no certification that goes into suturing or anything like that. Like I said, on my day one in trauma, because I felt comfortable because I have clinical experience, my residents asked, "Do you want to suture?" And I felt comfortable, so I sutured. If you don't feel comfortable, they will teach you how to do it. They'll show you how to do it. Make sure you feel comfortable. They'll supervise you doing it the first couple times. And then once you feel okay, they'll let you go and do it kind of on your own and give you that independence. But there's no certification that you have to do prior to. You can always practice suturing by buying a suture kit. You know, look at how to do simple dressing changes, things like that. But you will get taught it when you start.
Gotcha.
So,
Great.
so
Thank
I
you.
think it's also site dependent. At Cleveland Clinic now, because we've raised the bar overall for our students, they expect us to know how to suture. And so on the day of orientation, we have a surgery workshop. So like suture workshop, we teach you everything that you need to know before you go into rotation. Like it's like a 2-hour thing, basically.
Okay, that's great. And I
Right.
apologize, my phone kind of cut out, but when did you say that was run or started?
It's on the first day, like of orientation, like whenever they give you the orientation of the hospital and everything. We also do the suture workshop, and also there's like also like the scrub training. So there's 2 different things. So it's like a
Oh,
long day. The orientation day is pretty long, basically.
okay, nice. Great, thank you.
Of course.
And I want to add in for Bronx Care, we also do like the scrubbing in training sessions, and we also do a suture class with a plastic surgeon because she always says her sutures are from like Nordstrom Rack versus like sutures from the Dollar Tree. So she's very particular about it. I would recommend if you do come to Bronx Care, bring your own suture kit because she really likes working on things that feel similar to skin. She has her own stuff, but she likes when you show initiative.
Great, thank you. And actually, I guess to follow up on that, so you guys have mentioned, and I'm somewhat new to all this, but you've mentioned, you know, level 1 trauma, level 2 trauma, things like that. Now, obviously, like there's, you know, 5 or 6 cores, and there's different things you have to think about. You can't, I guess, just pick for one. But if you end up going to, you know, doing all the core rotations in a place, because it seems like the best option overall, are the lower end trauma centers still good enough to get experience you need, or like should I, you know, if it's really surgery, are there that I think I want to go into, are there a few like, you know, that I should focus on or pick in my rank, or how do you guys go about that?
So just off the bat, if you want to do trauma surgery, Chicago's the way to go. If you don't want to do trauma, you won't see any trauma at Cleveland Clinic. So I call it the bougie hospital. You pretty much you get all the nice cushier specialties. You have colorectal, you have urology, vascular surgery. There's no cardiothoracic, there's no trauma. The ED rotation here too, very similarly, go to Chicago, you'll see everything. Here, there's the ED rotations pretty much they have like 4 students per attending there, so you can chill. Again, Miami Rescue, they put you in, you can go to Palmetto or Coral Gables, I believe. And again, same thing, no trauma there, but the surgery there is very chill. So if you want experience, uh, like hands-on experience, Chicago is a good option.
Okay, great. So if I'm not so much interested or like focused on the trauma side of things, are the other ones still good for surgery experience, or you're really saying just go in the deep end and see it all in a place like
Oh no,
Chicago?
I loved so I did my surgery at Cleveland Clinic. I loved it. I had a great time.
Okay.
The residents were super, super nice. The attendings were all super nice. And again, like Joey was saying, from day one, they let you get hands-on. You are expected to know how to do stuff, but if you don't, it's better to say you don't know how to do it, and they will teach you. Because it's better to say you don't know than to try it and
Yeah.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
how to do it and look
Exactly.
real bad. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody's pretty nice, and it's a real good experience overall.
And when you're
Okay.
not
Yeah.
comfortable doing something, just tell them. They'll guide you a lot of the times. They'll teach you like on the spot. They'll teach you. Like
Okay.
don't be afraid to tell them you don't feel comfortable or you're scared or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, from what I've
Great,
heard
guys.
from